Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, welcome to another CIO East Africa webinar. It is our honor to host you once again. As usual, we have an exciting session planned for this afternoon. And our topic for today is making the shift to invisible infrastructure simple. And when I looked at this topic and I looked at the invitation content, it reminded me of some of the challenges that technology decision makers go through, and the challenge is, should I go to the cloud? Should I stay on premise? What happens to the investment that I've made so far? Am I going to cripple the business if I make a certain, a sudden decision? Is it going to cost me more? How do I do this effectively? And at the end of the day, even as technology decision makers, your core business cannot be the core technology. Your business is to advise the organization on the right investment so that it's able to support the business and grow the business and impact the business positively and increase productivity. So I am very excited today to introduce Nutanix, who are experts and are going to walk us through some of these difficult decisions that you have to make right now. And I can imagine right now it's even more difficult given the current situation where people have to work from all over the place. So I'm not going to go too much into the content. All I can tell is that I'm really looking forward to this. I'm very excited because sometimes, when I listen to some of your challenges, I worry for you because I'm like, are you going to go and ask for more money? Or are you going to go and tell the finance or the board, oh, well, the investment we made the last time, we have to get rid of it because now we have to do ABCD? No. That cannot be your work. Your work has to be to support the business and help the business grow. So Nutanix, thank you so much for hosting us this afternoon. We are very excited and we look forward to the content you're going to deliver. Before I let Martin, who's the strategic account manager for East Africa from Nutanix do his presentation, and later on we'll have Rui Goncalves join us for the Q&A session. I'm just going to go through the house rules very, very quickly. First, remember the public chat window is for all of us to engage. If you can't hear anything, if you can't see anything, please let us know there. We can exchange ideas in the public chat window. Let's continue to be as engaging as we've always been in our webinars. Remember to post your questions in the Q&A window, okay? And start posting them as early as possible so that we can start preparing to answer them. I can see we do have handouts in the handout window. Please feel free to download the handouts. Let's have an engaging session. We are supposed to run this session for 1 hour, but as you know, when the content is exciting, we normally go beyond an hour. So please, I am begging for your time in advance, depending on how you engage us. And finally, if we have any technology hitches, you know how technology is, please forgive us. We shall continue to keep you as engaged as possible, but please do bear with us if there are any hitches along the way and give us a heads up. So I'd like to introduce Martin now to deliver his content, and then we can go into the Q&A after that. Welcome all, and I look forward to an exciting session. Martin, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Laura. Thank you for the introduction. I have a few slides that I would first of all, an introduction to myself. As Laura mentioned, I am the strategic account manager for Nutanix, focusing specifically on East Africa. I've been doing the East African market for in excess of 20 years, so I know it fairly well. I know the challenges that are faced. I know the problems that are around. And hopefully by the time that we finish the session, I'll be able to give you an idea of how you can make your life simpler, how you can make your life easier, and how you can make the right choices. And the way that we want to do that is, as per the title of the presentation, is looking at how we can make your infrastructure invisible, making sure that you can focus on what needs to be done rather than keeping the lights on. So if you look at businesses today, one of the biggest challenges that we have at the moment is that right now, specifically while everybody talks about the new digital economy, we've had this thing called COVID come along and change the way that we do businesses, whether it be financial, whether it be manufacturing, whether it be retail. Things have made a big turn left because of COVID. And while we were trying to change what we do from a business standpoint and moving towards this digital economy, the effects of COVID have actually changed and accelerated this in a lot of cases. So you're now having projects that are being put on hold because they're not relevant, and other projects specifically around infrastructure, remote working, et cetera, that are now coming towards the forefront. So the question is, how do we deal with this? You look at technology. Technology is there to empower the business. We're not there to be a stick in the mud. We're not there to stop what happens. The example that I give around technology and empowering customers is the fact that I won't mention names, but I was with a bank for in excess of 20 years, happy. But every 6 months, I had to do one little thing. And that one little thing took me around 2 hours. And I was looking around for differentiators with other banks, and I actually found another bank that does this in an automated fashion. They also move the accounts or the debit orders and all the other bits and pieces from one bank to the other in a very simple and easy manner. So for me, I was able to move banks because the technology that they were using was different. So when we talk about customers and building competitive advantage, for me, this is something that is very, very, very key. And as I go through the presentation, I'll be talking about how we, as technology providers, can make your businesses a lot easier to be able to implement, to be able to grow, to be able to change, and to be able to adapt to this new digital, almost post-19 COVID scenario. But the problem that we have is that our infrastructure is horrendously complex. We will generally have multiple different vendors that are in there. We'll generally have multiple different solutions that are put in place. We have, like for example, for storage, you're going to have something that is a purpose-built system rather than something that is a common off-the-shelf solution. Each of these areas require specialized skills. I worked for Cisco for 10 years, and I love the company. But at the end of the day, they have a huge breadth of products, and you would think that even if it is Cisco, as the behemoth that it is, that if you deployed everything Cisco, you would have very little problems. But because there are different business units, different technologies, different features that are required, it does end up being a bit of a challenge. So what happens today is that we have this complex IT infrastructure, and we spend the vast majority of our time trying to keep the lights on, doing the upgrades, making the changes, making sure that there is compatibility, and not enough time on the applications and the services that we are providing both to the business on the one side as well as customers on the other. What we really should be doing is, rather than keeping the lights on, we should be innovating new and different ways from a technology perspective of how we can make our life easier, both for the internal users of our infrastructure, as well as the customers externally that are using it. So moving away from that 80-20 rule and moving more towards the actual applications themselves. But if you have a look at the challenges that we face in trying to simplify this, they're not easy to overcome. Not only have I mentioned already about the complexity and the silo solutions, but if you want to deploy applications, in the vast majority of businesses today, it has to be approved, it has to be checked, it has to make sure that you have the right patches. It is very, very, very slow and laborious. Not only that, but as we go through, we are trying to make sure that this data that we are giving access to is secure and compliant with whatever in-country regulations are in place. So there are a lot of challenges around this. And most importantly is, if you look down the bottom right-hand corner, is the lack of time, resources, and having the budget to be able to innovate. So changing it away from having to worry about the infrastructure, but rather looking at the ways that we can make it easier and better to be able to use. In a lot of these cases that we have, most businesses that we deal with today do face these challenges on a regular basis. But imagine if we could change that. Imagine if we can scale. Imagine if we can put the same solution in place for the tiniest business that we would put in place for the biggest business. The only difference is the number of nodes or servers or the amount of compute, etc., that you would require. Imagine if we can secure it in exactly the same way as if it's on premise. On that particular point, I did an event in Nairobi probably about a year ago, where we had a CIO roundtable, and I asked a question around moving to the cloud. And the question was, what are you doing around security? And the vast majority of the leaders in the room made the presumption that going to the cloud is secure. And we all know that that is not the case. Or we should know that that is not the case. The same features and functionality and solutions that you put in place on premise need to be put in place in the cloud. So what we want to do is to be able to empower the business to be able to provide the services to both your internal and your customers without having any impact on infrastructure, on having to do provisioning, and just making it as simple and easy as possible to be able to use. If you think about this, there are two things that we need to look at. It's choosing the right path that you need to go down, and I'll explain that in a couple of moments, as well as looking at the right platform. And that is where Nutanix comes in around the platform solution. So what should you be doing as a business today? So the first things first, you need to make sure that you are modernizing your IT infrastructure, making sure that you put a solution in place that is able to scale as and when you require it, that is future-proofed, and that is able to provide you with the services that you need as a business. As we move from left to right, we also need to start looking at IT as a service. So automating as much as possible. Why should you be involved in creating virtual machines? Why should you be involved in creating a web server when it can be automated? When you can have self-service portals that allow users to be able to request and create a template of services, which I will talk about a little bit later as well. And then moving towards the cloud. The cloud is great in certain scenarios, but it doesn't fit everybody's, it's not everybody's cup of tea. And the reason for that is that there are certain workloads that are far better suited for the cloud than they are on premise. But if you look at it today, I am almost 100% certain that each and every one of you have either a Gmail address, an Outlook address, a Live address, a Yahoo address, or something in the cloud, right? That's what you have. Everybody uses it. The question is, if I had to ask you, what infrastructure are they running? What servers are they running? What virtualization are they running? What hard drives are they running, or SSD? What computer are they running? What software are they running it on? You actually have no idea. I have no idea. And the reason for that is we don't care. All we care about is that when we access, in this particular example, our email, that it is up and running, it is working, and that it has our emails in. We don't care about that infrastructure. So cloud has done a great service for us in allowing us to be able to make this underlying infrastructure invisible. And what you really want to do as a business is to bring those cloud services inside your infrastructure. And the way that we do that is by making sure that, first of all, that it has web scale engineering. What that means is, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, from the smallest to the largest organization, having the same features and functionality. Once again, you look at your email, the only thing that you can get is more space, more storage, right? It doesn't make any difference to you about the underlying services. You just want it to be able to scale according to your requirements. You want to make sure that it never goes down. There's no single point of failure. And if there is a problem, then it heals itself. You want to make sure that we are able to figure out what the requirements are for the business by having something like machine learning in place, as well as also having something that allows us to be able to cater for software-defined everything, which is what we want to do. But what you're really looking to do is to be able to make life as simple as possible, having a rapid time to market for applications, so that when you do have an application that you do want to deploy, that it is easy to be able to deploy, that you pay for when you grow, okay? That you have one-click operations, one-click upgrades, one-click everything. In other words, making that underlying infrastructure invisible. No downtime, simple upgrades, ease of use, being able to grow. And then the last thing is that, if you look at things like Facebook, Google, Amazon, etc., they continuously provide software upgrades and provide innovation and changes. And with that, what we do is they upgrade the software on a regular basis. But as a user of cloud services, you will see that there is no downtime. So what you really want to do is provide that continuous innovation with no downtime. But if you look at the workloads that you have in your infrastructure today, there are multiple different criterias that we look at as to where these workloads should be. Should they be in the cloud or should they be on premise, right? And there are reasons why you would want to have a workload or an application on cloud versus the public cloud. The first one is there are some applications that just do not allow you to be able to move to cloud, as well as having something like data gravity, which means that the applications need to be close and around the data itself, and doesn't allow that move towards the cloud. Obviously, things like regulatory concerns, whether it be having the information either A, within the country, or B, within the organization, would mean that you're not able to put an application on in the cloud. In some cases, we have loss of control. So we're not quite too sure, as I mentioned around security, you want to make sure that you have the same level of security on premise as you do in the cloud. And the last thing is that in some cases, the cloud can be unpredictable when it comes to costs. So we want to make sure that you are able to comprehensively figure out where a application or where a workload is best suited for. Is it on premise or is it in the cloud? So what works for the vast majority of businesses out there is the hybrid cloud. Now, that is where we have some workloads on premise that are more predictable, where we have the performance, whereas some of them are better suited for the public cloud. The best example I can give you for an elastic workload would be, admittedly, this is a couple of years ago, but in South Africa, we had Justin Bieber and a couple of other artists come out to one of my stadiums here. And they released 65,000 tickets. The website went down within 10 seconds. The reason being is that they didn't have that ability to be able to create a service that was able to cater for that influx of people. Once that concert was sold out, it went back down to normal. So that particular workload is very elastic rather than predictable performance. So organizations need generally a combination of the two. But to take it one step further, we also have the ability to be able to do multi-cloud as well. So Nutanix supports both on-premise, the hybrid cloud, and multi-cloud. So having in multiple different workloads in different public clouds, allowing us to be able to simplify the process of where this infrastructure is put in place. So how do we make this infrastructure invisible? What is it that we need to do? How do we provide the cloud-like services on-premise? If you look at a normal infrastructure that you have today, there's a couple of different areas that we focus on. The first one is the actual hardware. And what I would say to you around hardware is whether it is Nutanix has an NX brand, But whether it is Nutanix, whether it is HPE, whether it is Dell EMC, Lenovo, Supermicro, Inspur, IBM, etc., the big thing is that hardware vendors are becoming irrelevant. And our CIO, Dheeraj Pandey, released an article around the reasoning behind why hardware is becoming irrelevant. So please do me a favor and Google that. It's exactly as it is there. Hardware vendors are becoming irrelevant. But the thing is that they are becoming commodity, right? I mean, a 3.84 terabyte SSD is a 3.84 terabyte SSD regardless of the vendor. What does make a difference is things like failure rates and support. So from a Nutanix perspective, we support multiple vendors, so you have no tie-in. So if today Dell EMC is the cheapest, but tomorrow HPE is the cheapest, we support all of that. And I'll explain in a moment what I mean. Going further up the stack, you have your hyper-converged, which is basically the pooling of your compute resources, of your storage resources, of your virtualization resources, and of your networking resources. And above that, you have your virtualization, which is one of two things. It could either be VMware, which you pay for the licenses, or it could be something like Microsoft with Hyper-V, or Citrix with Zen Server, or Nutanix has a license-free hypervisor, which is included as part of the solution. The point is that each of those bottom three are able to be invisible to you using the Nutanix solution because we provide one-click upgrades. We provide you, which means that you can just literally click a button and upgrade the hardware, regardless of the vendor, upgrade the virtualization, regardless of the vendor, and upgrade your hyper-converged, which would obviously be Nutanix. This would mean that the underlying infrastructure is not there because all you have to do every now and again is upgrade it with zero downtime. So we have a few customers, financial institutions that upgrade the infrastructure during the day. In fact, as Nutanix, we have a page that is dedicated to our customers telling us the most unique and individual places that they have upgraded their infrastructure, whether it is on a plane, 10,000 meters in the sky, 30,000 feet, yeah, 10,000 meters in the sky, whether it is on a mountain in the middle of nowhere, on a helicopter, diving. People upgrade their infrastructure wherever because they can do that with the assurance that it is not going to give downtime. But at the same time, you still want to adhere to make sure that you have your business continuity, that you have your backups, that you have your solution in place to make sure that you comply to any and all regulatory requirements. And you also want to make sure that the security solution that you have in place is as secure on-premise as it would be if you wanted to move into the cloud. And as we have certain applications and as we use those certain applications, we need to be able to extend in and out of the cloud on an as-needed basis as well. So all of those will be automated in the upgrades, in the provisioning, in the adding and deleting of services that makes life extremely simple for you as a business. And the reason why I say that is to add on to my previous slide, Nutanix supports over 180 different server platforms. So we are not tied into one particular vendor or even our own hardware. In fact, I don't get paid on hardware, so I don't care about hardware. I really do not care what vendor you use when it comes to Nutanix. It's one of those things that gives you the freedom of choice, avoiding your vendor lock-in. We support multiple hypervisors, but once again, we don't see why you should be paying for a hypervisor if you can get one that is license-free, that is enterprise-ready, and that is integrated into the solution. You want to be able to deploy it wherever you see fit, whether that is on-premise, in the cloud, or a combination of those. And last but not least, you want to buy it when and how you want to buy it. Most of our customers are moving towards this just-in-time flexibility. In other words, making a request for resources when they need it, not once a year, but as and when they need the resources. And viewing it in a different case, regardless of the vendor, regardless of the cloud, regardless of the hypervisor, and regardless of the use case, for us, we are able, as Nutanix, we're able to deploy a solution for you that gives you that freedom of choice based on either cost, requirements, skills, etc. The thing is that you are not tied into one specific item. And as I mentioned earlier on, why do you have to pay for virtualization? Virtualization should be included as part and parcel of any solution. Nutanix provides the Acropolis hypervisor, which is the license-free virtualization that allows you to be able to scale as your compute and storage scales, to be able to provide you with your business continuity, disaster recovery solution, to be able to provide you with your security, to be able to provide you with your right sizing of the solution. That is included as part and parcel of every solution that we sell. Use it, don't use it. The point is, it is there regardless. But one of the things that is really important here is our secret sauce. And we were talking I was talking right in the beginning around some of the challenges that are faced around having multiple vendors in an infrastructure. But today, you actually have multiple different management platforms that you have, whether it be security, virtualization, storage, backup, possibly a self-service portals, possibly some applications. From a Nutanix perspective, what you can see slightly behind all of those different individual small screens is one big screen. Regardless of the hardware vendor, regardless of the virtualization, regardless of the security of the applications, of the data protection, of the backup, of the storage and self-service requirements, Nutanix provides you with one management platform. That single management platform works on multiple hardware vendors. It works on multiple hypervisors. So if you want to change from one hardware vendor to another, from a Nutanix perspective, the look and feel is 100% exactly the same. This means that you can buy whatever is best for the business and not what is best for the vendor, which is a big change. And as part of this, you want simplicity, making sure that you don't have to worry about the infrastructure, doing your upgrades, automating the services, migrating the applications from on-premise into the cloud, making sure that you have the right solutions in place for the virtual machines or for the requirements of the business, making sure that you are getting alerted when there are problems, making sure that it can be healed or provide self-healing if that's a problem, making sure that you can scale up or scale out without any challenges at the same time. And also, the most important part for me is the planning, because one of the features that is provided is something called Runway, which has two major requirements or two major advantages. First of all, it tells you how many of your resources are currently being used, number one. And because we use machine learning, we are able to determine how long your infrastructure will last you based on the current applications that you have in place. So when you are doing planning, budgeting planning, it makes life far easier when you have something like this in place. And on the other side, we provide a what if. So what if we added another 2 databases? What if we added another 20 applications? What if we bought another business? How would that impact the infrastructure that we have in place today? So we have the as is with a certain degree of predictability about it, and the what if. So these sort of solutions are phenomenal when it comes to making sure that we can right size the environment specifically for each and every individual business. And also you want to be able to make sure that you can automate as much as possible. Why should you have the IT staff doing the day-to-day simplistic things when we can have blueprints that allow us to be able to do this. Making sure that if you have a developer that requires a database, some sort of middleware and a web front end, you can automatically create and provision it and tear it down when it's no longer required. If you have a business analyst that wants to use some of the data that you have in the organization, create a clone of it and allow him to be able to use it. But do this in an automated, simple fashion. You should not be getting the IT staff involved in areas like this. So making sure that it is as simple as possible. And Nutanix provides all of this in one simple platform, regardless of whether it is the private cloud, the public cloud, multi-cloud, and MSP, regardless of the type of services that you are doing, whether it is your backup, your disaster recovery, your business continuity, networking, storage, etc., etc. VDI, Nutanix provides that regardless of the type of workload. As it mentions up there, one platform, any app, any cloud. That includes on-premise. For us, it is all the same. It is simple to be able to use. And as an account manager, when I joined Nutanix, I had to do a presentation on Prism, the management platform. It took me 20 minutes to learn how to give a proper demo. That is how easy it is to be able to do. And if I can do it, it means that almost anybody can. So it is extremely easy to be able to deploy and to be able to use. And just to give you an idea of Nutanix itself, just a quick quote from Gartner. The name Nutanix carries an image of functionality and quality, which is exactly what we do. We have around just under 18,000 customers, quite a few of those in the global 2000s. I think there are 6 global 2000 companies in Africa. I sold to one of them in Uganda last quarter, and we've done another one, the biggest company in Africa, the quarter before. So we've actually got some very large implementations. You look at our customer satisfaction, 100% exactly the same. We have an extremely high customer satisfaction. And one of the things that I would suggest that you do is if you're looking to find out what other people think of a specific company, have a look at their Net Promoter Score. Net Promoter Score goes from -100 to +100. So having a score of +90 is absolutely phenomenal. Not just that, but if you compare us to our peers, you'll see that we are by far the best when it comes to the Net Promoter Score. And the Net Promoter Score is a very simple question. It is, would you recommend, obviously Nutanix, to somebody else, yes or no? So depending on the score, you get a score back. Now, with a score like this, the reason we have that is because, simply put, we do not have junior engineers that are deployed in our contact centers. We only have level 3 engineers. So the same engineer that will log the call will be the same engineer that closes the call from cradle to grave. Our support is bar none. We are extremely proud of our support. And the one thing that I mentioned to all of our customers is go ahead, go and test it. It is something that you need to experience to be able to, so that we can show you how great it is. One of the things I just wanted to mention is everybody always looks at things like the Gartner Magic Quadrant or the Forrester Wave. So these are the latest 2, as you will see in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. Ourselves and VMware are pretty close together, but our ability to be able to execute is obviously higher because this is our core business. This is what we do. We make the invisible infrastructure. We make sure that you do not have to worry about upgrading, changing, adding, etc. And then the one on the right-hand side, the Forrester Wave, was released just 2 weeks ago. The one good thing about it is if you look at us in VMware, we are socially distancing, which is phenomenal, and we're pulling away from them according to the Gartner Wave. But the point is that we're extremely proud of these because it shows that the market and the independent analysts are realizing that Nutanix is the way to go when it comes to hyper-converged infrastructure, or making your infrastructure invisible. The last couple of things that I just want to mention, there are 2 or 3 slides here, but I'm not going to take too much more time. We have a whole bunch of studies that have been released around, some of them are around return on investment, the other one's around total cost of ownership. The point here is that Nutanix will work with you to be able to see what it is that you would be saving from a monetary perspective in conjunction with Nutanix. We base it off of the IDC report, which is the reason why I've included 1 or 2 of these slides. But the point is that there is some work that has to be done from your side, from the customer side, from the business side, for us to be able to give you accurate figures. We worked on a bank in Ethiopia around providing them with a personalized report. The results were stunning. The amount of money that they were saving by going with Nutanix, the cost savings, the efficiencies, etc., was phenomenal. So based on the size of the organization, obviously the bigger the organization, generally the bigger the savings. But we are more than happy to work with you around helping you to motivate to the business the advantages of moving towards a hyper-converged infrastructure solution. In other words, making everything invisible from the bottom down. Not going to go into these into any detail, but these are just some of the other advantages that we noticed. The fact that you can deploy applications in a fast and easy manner with little to no user intervention. The fact that you do not have to worry about the underlying infrastructure means that now your IT staff can go back and start to look at the business and say, well, what can we do to optimize? What can we change in our processes? How can we make the services that we provide both to our internal customers and our external customers simpler and easier to be able to use? As a very last slide, the easiest way for me to say anything is the proof is in the pudding. If you look at the link that we have here, nutanix.com/test drive, please, I urge you to register and go and have a look at that. It gives you the ability to be able to play around with a Nutanix cluster, to see how easy it is to be able to use, to be able to create, to be able to move, to be able to simplify your databases, to be able to simply deploy security, to have that one single management console that hides absolutely everything underneath. So please, I urge you to go and have a look at Test Drive. It is something that we are pushing quite heavily. We've started actually beginning of last month to push it quite heavily. I urge you to look at that and work with us around it. But it is a phenomenal tool, and generally once businesses see how easy it is to be able to use and how easy it is to be able to deploy, that is the advantages of running Nutanix. And that is it from my perspective. Hopefully you found my last 35 minutes very useful. Hopefully it's opened your mind to the fact that you shouldn't have to worry about the upgrades. You shouldn't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure. You shouldn't have to worry about having to get the vendor in to be able to do the upgrades. You shouldn't have to worry about how much capacity you have to have left. You should be worried about where am I going to put my application and what do I need to get it to run effectively. So that is it from my side. Thank you very much. And with that, I think we are going to be going back to Laura.